Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. We are here today with the amazing Gene Decode. Scott and I are in different locations, and Gene is where he usually is. He's going to be revealing, deep underground military bases, the white hat, black hat control, you name it, how they've been taken down. Are they still working? And we'll go into some of the gold, the situation with gold, etc. So, Gene, it's been far too long. Thank you so much for joining us, Gene Decode on TruthStream.
Yeah, great to see you again, Gene.
Thank you, gentlemen. It's wonderful to be back on your platform. It's been a long time. So, it's just time passes so fast nowadays. You don't realize, holy smoke, it's been a year.
Yeah.
Well, we can start out with that, Joe. We've been wondering why a friend of ours shared something with us that there really is a disparity in time. I know sometimes a day feels like 6 hours. I mean, it just flies by. What's really happening with time?
Because things are speeding up as we head towards the event. I just call it the event, the coronal mass emission event. Yeah, that's based on Cabal studies, supposed to be 2031. I don't know if that's absolute. It's obviously, I actually know the date, but then that can't be right because the Bible says none shall know the exact time for the shift. So that's going for the entire earth to jump into, actually not jump. Well, jump, I guess, is one way to put it, to split the two at that time. By that time, or when that time occurs, all of the timelines will condense into two. There won't be all on Earth, not across the entire multiverse, but on Earth, there will be two choices. That'll be to exist on Earth as a timeline. And that'll be to be in service to others, kind, compassionate, trying to be a good person, and not vengeful and mean and nasty and doing trafficking and all these other things, or to be in that other mode. If you're in the other mode of doing that stuff like we see being uncovered by Doge and the trafficking and Epstein and all this other stuff, and vengeful and mean and aggressive, then that's your other choice, and that's the Armageddon line. So there'll be the Armageddon line, and there'll be the Golden Age line, is one way to put it, based on what Trump said when he came in. We'll just call it the Golden Age line. I call it the line that's in the highest service to God. And I mean, when I say God, the God that created absolutely everything everywhere, not some little rinky dink demon creature, Draco Archon, playing that he's God on earth. Right. With fallen angelic helping him out. So,
Right. Well, Jim, it seems like such an easy decision for us, and I think people watching our show. So, what I guess my question is, and maybe this was all these reveals are happening so that it can get people to realize that there's, that there's actually, this is real, that evil is real. So, what is that going to look like? I mean, as far as what you're thinking, I mean, is it going to be a direction that one walks in? Is it just going to be a place that one connects and then goes there? How have you seen that unfolding? If you could share any of that, if you have.
Oh, easily. It's due to resonance. What you resonate, you bring towards you. Law of attraction. So you go to where you resonate. So, for example, there was a man that was in near a dump facility near Sedona, Arizona, which is a portal. And he wound up on a parallel Earth. And this guy, he was out in the desert, that's kind of deserty area. It was there too. And he met this guy, and the guy took him back to his place because he was, in a desert with no water. He helped him out, and he was there, and he's looking around at the guy's place while the guy's getting him water and some other things he needed. And he saw this Beatles album he's never heard of. And the guy came back and he goes, I've never heard of it. Oh, yeah, they just recently recorded that. They recently recorded that. He goes, yeah, the Beatles are still recording. Where have you been? He goes, apparently not here. A lot of that line, I'm paraphrasing, but it turned out on that Earth, the Beatles are still recording and still doing things and still together. And he was pretty flabbergasted. He, was like, what? So he listened to some of it. It was obviously the Beatles. I think the album is called Every Day. And he actually pilfered the album when the guy dropped him back. He had stolen the guy's from the parallel universe, and you can actually see it on YouTube. There's a presentation of it. A guy did it as a presentation and did the showed the album. It was a cassette deck that he brought back from the parallel Earth with him of the Beatles, and so it's pretty interesting.
I can't say I've heard that story ever.
No. Wow. We
Yeah.
need to look into that one.
That okay? Well, that helps. It's because I think that's what's happening. We're vibrating and we're meeting people and we're doing events and etc. So, okay. Well, thanks for clarifying that. So, I think a big reason that we want to what we want to talk about on this show is Gene has been sharing a list of the deep underground military bases and their current status, etc. And when Gene shows this, it's not like he won't be showing his face. He's now just going to show this amazing list. Now he can't really reveal the source of where he got this information, so we do want to respect that. But Gene, where do we start with this list? I mean, there's 10,000 bases, and you have, I think, 2,000 of them listed.
And before we jump into the list, there was just one question that I had. I don't want to get too far away from the topic. So when we have this bifurcation of sorts, what might that experience look like? I mean, we've got the Christians have their rapture, and that seems to play in some way. To me, it seems like the people are polarizing so much that like the right and left dynamic, for instance, we just can't understand each other at all at this point. And I don't know. I almost envision the time when they just cease to be visible. Like, it just.
Yeah, that's how it works. It'll be an event in which it won't be apparent that it happened for most part. For most people, they won't witness what the Bible says, the 3 days of darkness and the fire falling from the sky, because they're already raptured or died. And for some people on one earth, they'll say all these other people died. And on the other one, they'll say the same thing, but it'll be a different crowd of people. Could be from the stuff that they did back in 2019. It could be from a lot of people have died from that they aren't really showing you in mainstream media. It's, for example, a video I saw of a guy walking down the streets of Manhattan, and he was showing the streets all cleaned up from all the illegal aliens being removed. And I'm thinking to myself, yeah, I was gone through Manhattan before they were there. He was talking about how it was before they were there, their white city streets, because they were crowded. They didn't have illegals selling contraband and needles and human refuse and camps and, tents and all that. But they were crowded. There were a lot of people on, going to work time and getting off work. It was crowded. And even in between, in lunch hour, it was crowded. And then you had vendors selling hot dogs and, different things. And when he was walking down the street, now that they're gone, I'm like thinking to myself, where are all the people? I know you shipped out, close to 11 million, and I think we're supposed to have 12.4 total illegals that were in this country. I know that's a lot of people. But at the same time, remembering back what it looked like 20 years ago, there were more people on the street than that. Those city sidewalks are wide because they had to accommodate a lot of people. And there's not that many people. And I was thinking that here too. If I take the population growth that we've supposedly had, and I go out in rush hour, and I remember before the illegals here, you get out in rush hour, 4 or 5 o'clock in the afternoon on the freeway, you don't move but about a few feet at a time for about 30 minutes to an hour, depending on the day of the week. Because Fridays are worse than Wednesdays, for example, because, bug out Friday, as they call it. So I'm like, how come it's flowing? Not fast, 30 miles an hour, which allows me, if I want to go through it at about 60, because if I need to go through it, I can see things because of my abilities, like timelines opening before they do. I can see things happen before they do. So I can see all the cars are going to leave this lane starting in about 3 seconds. So I could jump in that lane. All of a sudden, all the cars move out and I zoom forward about a quarter mile, So I'm just taking the openings as I go, very quickly if I want to. And then now you can do that at rush hour where you couldn't. There was no openings to be had during. I'm like, there's a lot of people. And I go through housing projects that are standing, new housing projects, which used to be when they were finishing a housing project, you already had people moving in. Before the grass and the landscaping was done, people were already living there. Now the housing project's completely done. All of the landscaping is done and it's empty. The whole project is utterly empty. There's a place where I go out to hike with my dog, and there's a new housing project that's about 2 years old now. And there's like every 10th house has somebody in it. And it's pretty much empty. And you can see the office is not, they have hours and days of the week they're open. They were open almost 24 hours a day before because they were, it's new. People are buying constantly. They staffed it all the time. Now they say open, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. So they can do 4-day weekends. I'm like, you're not selling, are you? Because there's way less people. So there are 7 to 8 billion people on Earth. Not anymore. Not anymore. And I talked to a person that used to be in my team. They left because of the demand. Their family had been done a mortuary service for 8 generations, I think it is. And that she said that they were ordering child coffins in bulk, which they have never done. Never. And I mean massive amounts. And when they do the embalming, they were getting things out that they've never seen. And they know what they've seen for a couple hundred years. And, blood and those things. That's not what they're seeing. They're seeing, like you've seen on YouTube, these long tubes of like kind of white, spongy looking material or thick,
clots, right? Like thick clots.
Yeah, exactly. So what we're seeing is a way to move to the other Earth because you are no longer in resonance with, like you said, you can't even understand them. They don't even make any sense. Things that are incredibly obvious to you. They don't see, it was like there's a YouTube of a teacher and he asked questions like, he asked this guy, what's a woman? And the guy goes, well, that's a social construct. And she's like, what? It's like, no woman can give birth to a baby. Well, that's not really true. It's these kind of things that people are no longer resonating to the point where they can't understand each other. It's like Babel, but in this case, they're moving, and in that case, they move to parallel Earths. So they no longer resonate to the point to where if you get a change in the overall structure of the galaxy you're in resonance, they can't exist in one side of it. In the side we're in the process of heading into, there's a barrier between one side of the Milky Way and the other side. One side is positive, like in any electrical system, it's a 180-degree phase shift. The other side is negative. We're in the negative side. We're transgressing, we're moving, not transgressing, we're in the process of transforming into the positive side, going through, and those that resonate with positive, service to others, service to God, service to creation, respect, consideration, those kind of things can exist there. Those that don't can't exist there. So what the Kabbalah has been trying to do, which is alternative 4, is for quite a few decades, they have been trying to change the frequency of the Earth to a negative, the entire planet, encompass it in a negative field so it's protected.
Wow. And they failed, obviously, at that.
They failed. I mean, like back in the 90s, when Dr. Coleman visited Hawaii, I was stationed in Hawaii, went to the meeting, and he was on news, and being interviewed and all of these things. At the same time, right after that presentation of him being interviewed, they had a announcement that the space shuttle was out doing things, and they were showing what one thing it was doing was not dragging a copper 16-mile long thin antenna wire behind it with certain frequencies in it. I go, I know exactly what you're doing. You're trying to change the frequency of the Van Allen belts and the upper atmosphere and the edge of space. And they had done that also simultaneously detonating nuclear weapons way up there over Antarctica and the Arctic and the outback and certain areas where people wouldn't notice, to ionize the Earth's atmosphere into a negative field simultaneously to try to vibrate the planet all at once. Not completely understanding at that time in the 40s and 50s when they did this in the 60s. They did it several times. That's not what nuclear weapons do. So what they wound up doing is eating through the ozone layer, because that's what nuclear weapons do. They chew through things. The radiation eats and changes the vibrations of things, yes, but not like that. And so that's what begot the ozone holes. It wasn't industrialization. Otherwise, if it was industrialization, it would be over your major industrial centers, not over the Antarctica. That's not a major industrial center. No.
Right.
Wow. That's a lot to wrap your head around.
Yeah, it is. So in answer to your question, the short answer is it's been in progress. And when the CME happens, those that remain, it'll be all at once. They'll all start moving at once in different directions. And for those that need to have a dramatic event, they will. Because you always get what you absolutely believe in. If you absolutely believe that XYZ is going to happen, then it will happen, because that's a choice that you need to experience. And that is a choice is what sets timelines. That's the short of it.
Yeah. Well, what I was given was just this vision of it being just kind of as a matter of fact sort of a thing. You wake up and things are different, but somehow everybody kind of coalesces with that new reality, and even memories are affected to serve that. But it's just interesting to see the beginning of that. This lack of understanding. I can almost just see people like fading into just not being visible.
Yeah, I've actually had, it's what's called the Mandela effect, where people see things have changed.
Yeah.
It gets to the point where people's memories actually, like you said, they rewrite. I've had the people I know, their memory of what happened is in the history and in remembrance of their lifetimes with certain people. What they remember and what I know, I even have it on recording, is completely different. They're saying XYZ happened. I go, that's not what happened then. I have the recording of that meeting, and that's not what you said, and that's not what happened. All these kind of things, so for an example, of course, is Mandela. And then you have things like build it and he will come. It's not he will come. It is now. It was they will come, but now it's he will come. One guy? Who is this guy? He could play every position at once? It must be God or something, or the Flash. This is an amazing guy. And then it used to be life is like a box of chocolates.
Mm-hmm.
It's not anymore. Now it was like a box of chocolates. So my question is then, if it was, what's it like now?
That was fun. I think it was just 2 days ago I described what we're experiencing now as sort of like the Mandela effect part 2, because now it's involving linear time changing so drastically. And, a lot of these observations it's a similar effect. And it's sort of the co-creative aspect of things really starts to show itself, because well, like you said, belief plays a great role. As the observer, we have to observe the thing in order for the thing to render or form. And we've always just felt like, travelers in this, but I think it's becoming more and more evident to a lot of us just how involved we are in the process of, um, I guess, creating reality. Does that make sense?
Oh, absolutely. The Cabal learned this a long time ago through envisioning, and what they use black magic combined into it, which is actually a type of envisioning. They offer up things as to help demons help them in creating an event through envisioning. So in this case, they realized they could do it on a world scale. And when this happened was the Spanish Armada was approaching the White Cliffs of Dover. And they did this witch warlock guy they had brought up a storm out of nowhere, and it destroyed the majority of the Spanish Armada, which gave England, the United Kingdom, control of the oceans of the world because that was their major opponent. So their major opponent of becoming a world empire with their fleet was removed in one event. And the storm just came out of nowhere. And because of that, the Portuguese were pretty serious at the time, and the French too. But they realized that the British had some kind of secret weapon, and it was through envisioning. And I have experienced things myself that I've done in envisioning, and then later I never thought about it for 4 or 5 years, and then it was an energy work I did, and then I think it was 5 years or 6 years later, somebody asked me a question about something, and it was this energy envisioning I had done around myself. And this person goes, "Can I ask you a question?" I go, "Sure." "I'm seeing something around you, and it's this, this, this." And I said, she goes, "What is it?" And I said, "Oh, I did that 6 years ago." And it was, at the time, I didn't really think about it ever again. It wasn't a big deal. Right. And so it was there the whole time. And this lady who could see at the energetic level could still see it there. And I never told anybody. I was like, that's real. That's real. And people don't realize that even as events come into being, you can see them. It's why you have simultaneous inventions like calculus, where two people invent something on different parts of the earth with no communication at all. It happens all over the world all the time, where we see events or something being invented by sometimes even more than two. And what it is it's moving through the energetic layers of existence first. It goes from the mental, from the soul plane as an event that the soul needs to experience, through the mental plane of the thoughts and ideas of what that's going to look like. Then if it needs lessons and, emotional lessons and things like that, it'll first go through the causal, where it'll pick up cause and effect. Then it'll go into the astral, where if it needs to pick up emotions like anger and frustration or happiness and joy and these. Then it comes into the physical. Sometimes it'll go straight from the mental, if it's just a mental, like calculus. It doesn't need an emotional content to it. So it goes straight from the mental plane to the physical plane. But everything that comes into being goes through these layers in some progression, and it jumps in there. And I've been aware of this as I've had dreams that then later came completely true. And I've had this all my life. It's what they call it. Kerry Cassidy calls it being a precog. You see something that long before it happens. I mean, we're talking decades, or even in prophecy. It's prophecy. Centuries, hundreds of centuries. There was 800 years ago, a Chinese historian did a prophecy about a disease that would sweep the entire world in the century we're in. Well, we had that now, didn't we? And that was prophesied 800 something years ago in China.
Wow. Gene, on that, with the whole Simpsons, cartoons, what do you think is really going on there? Is that is that them harnessing and then creating events, or is it something else?
What that is extremely likely because they're too accurate too often. But not 100% accurate. people think it's 100% accurate because you don't remember. There's so many that are on, you don't remember the ones that are off.
Sure.
And recent events when Trump got in are showing that. There's certain things that aren't matching anymore.
Okay.
Because what this is the cabal using Project Looking Glass and the Yellow Cube. So they're able to look forward with a remote viewer in the seat of the device. They call it the mercy seat. It's like in the Ark of the Covenant, there was a mercy seat where you would sit and be in direct contact with God. So you would sit near the device. And so in this case, the same thing. You sit near the device, and if you can have a singular focus of a thought form, for example, Hillary wins the election in 2016. That's it. What does the world experience? And so they can then see Trump wins the election in 2016. Then they can then see. And so they see the events leading up to that, what allows for that to happen, and what does happen afterwards. So that then they can start to move forward with projects to do the things that are necessary that they want to bring that into actuality.
Got it.
So that really, the way you explained it, it sounds an awful lot like how a quantum computer works.
It's exactly how a quantum computer works. Quantum computer, what it's doing is going down to the below the Planck distance to the quantum level, which is the substrate just before the next universe below us, which is infinite. Below, inside each atom, down to the Planck distance, down to the quantum, which is a layer of consciousness itself. The particles are literally conscious particles. In other words, God. But it's going across all the potentials of the entire multiverse, all the universes. So what the quantum is doing is, if you flip a coin, for example, 50% it comes up heads, 50%. Well, that means in another universe, the other 50% occur. When it comes up heads here, it comes up tails there in some universe. So the quantum computers can do quantum positioning. So they're saying all the possible outcomes, it's like gaming, all of the possible outcomes of a choice, of flipping a coin or doing a certain event. It's what you see with the Adjustment Bureau. The beings in the Adjustment Bureau, in the movie The Adjustment Bureau, are seeing what needs to be done to change the outcome of in the future of certain things that they're steering the future. So it can be something small that changes the outcome. It doesn't have to be something huge. It's like the butterfly effect. Right. If you just spill somebody's coffee in their lap on their way out, they have to go back and change clothes. So they're a few minutes later to work. And another good series to show that is The Fringe, where the guy saves the guy's life in a lake. And that winds up that the guy that son got saved, another man loses his son. Because in the process of his son being there, he can now spend time with his son when his son was dead. And he spends time. And so that means people are in different places at different times. And so the other man's son winds up getting hit by a car that wouldn't have been there at that time. So it's the butterfly effect. They know how to position things in this way. And so what they're doing is using Project Looking Glass to see what is currently the predominant future. Well, because their desires, if you remote view the future with a desire, not just a question, like, okay, Hillary gets it. Okay, now Trump gets it. Now Harris gets it. Now, different possibilities. You actually have an emotional content. You will influence the device because it'll take in that energy structure and say, with those energies matching your desire, this is the outcome. It's not just a blatant, what's all the possibilities? You've limited the possibilities because you may have a certain desired outcome. Then you will see the desired outcome.
All right. So I think that necessitates a question I got to ask. So
I was going to say, I think the machine broke, though, when they tried to get Kamala in. I just had to say it. But what were you going to say? I think, well, because I don't want you to forget.
Yeah. So it's been it's been my understanding that effectively our physiology comprises a quantum computer, that we are a room temperature, body temperature quantum computer, and many of the designs to try and replicate this quantum computing have they've arrived there by mimicking physiology, and the D wave is probably the best example for that. Does that ring true?
Precisely.
Okay, so we're all imbued in our very nature, our design, with the same ability that these fantastical technological machines are attempting to achieve.
That's exactly where they're heading with AI, is these new AIs that are coming out. They have human algorithms, what they call human algorithms, but which actually is human synapse imprinting, to develop the ability that a human to be a precog, to prophesy something 800 years in the future. And it's correct. It is real. And yet the person really isn't a world leader. It's just some guy in China. It's not like he was the head of China or something like that, the ruler of China at the time. He wasn't well known. So he's not having a huge effect on the timeline. He's just viewing the timeline as the predominant one of what are all the main choices leading up to. And so the same thing goes here. All human beings have this ability, and it's why the cabal has realized this. And through Tavistock Institute, long-range preconditioning, they put out movies and different things. A big one, for example, would be movies that aliens are aggressive and mean, and they're going to kill you and take over the earth. That's the big one. There's very rarely, except for maybe E.T., are non-terrestrial beings nice. They're always wanting to, using their technologies like future war and all these things, to destroy the earth and take it over or wipe it out. It's always the case. Mars attacks. I mean, it's always this stuff. Why is it always that way? Because that's what they want. They want that in the common substrate of the human consciousness, of the sub and conscious and the unconscious, because that is what creates the timeline. And so they're doing a negative envisioning. They're creating a resonant field within the overall populace of the entire planet. And that's setting the future so that when they do bring out these beings in reversed craft, people will completely believe it, and then they'll have some actual ones involved in that are wanting that anyway, that are nasty ones. And so they'll actually have some truth in it, but the majority of it won't be real. It'll be holographic. But people will completely make it real, like they did in the broadcast of War of the Worlds. People were actually seeing stuff that wasn't there. And that's their experience of reality at that time. And then that will make that so that actually becomes a fact. And so this is how Tavistock Institute, all of the different things we have happening, all the wars, all of this have gone forever, is they have learned this and have been doing this for centuries now. A really good example is there was a person that was told in World War II that if he could get 200 people to meditate on peace, that World War II would come to an end in a day. Just couldn't do it, because the world was at war and they couldn't hold it in their mind. So that is, and they've done a study in Washington, D.C. They shared it with the police department for peace and love and compassion and understanding. And they told the police department they expected the crime rate to drop by, I think it was something like 25% or something like that. And the police department said, this is summer. The only way that's going to happen is if it snows 2 feet in the middle of July or something. And strangely enough, especially the violent crimes of murder and things like that started to drop. And by the end of the 30 days of the study, the police department were joining in the meditations in envisioning, because it's making their job easier. All the violent crimes were decreasing. Right. Wound up decreasing way more than what they said. So you can see how envisioning and thinking and feeling, it's why the Bible says, if you think something, you've done it, because it winds up being done anyway.
Which is why it's so important for them to keep us divided. Because if we ever synchronized our efforts in that way,
Yeah.
well, reality would probably look a lot different.
Oh,
I think that's where we're going, though, isn't it?
absolutely. It's even more pronounced than that because you have a layer at the fifth density negative of beings that feed off of fear and anger and war. What if we stop that worldwide? Why do you think they're pushing it? It's not just the military industrial complex makes a fortune off of war and that they make a fortune off of death and dying all over the world and the Red Cross and all of this as an industry. It's an economy. And so they make a trillions and trillions of dollars. If that were to stop, that goes away.
Right.
So if you perpetuate it, but if you get people coming together that are constantly saying no more war all over the world, they're going, I love this. This is awesome. Let's be peaceful and respectful and kind and learn about each other and appreciate each other. Different points of view. Okay, you look at God this way and you worship God that way. Interesting. Why? Well, like the Amorites in the Middle East, in the situation in Syria. They've been there from before the Roman Empire and they worship a certain way. Why? Interesting. Instead of just wiping them out, let's go learn. Let's go see what their views, what their history passed down for thousands of years. Fascinating. Let's not kill them. Let's learn. Let's share. Well, that's a way of being that humans used to have long millions of years ago. What if we go back to that? Well, that means that all those archons at fifth density and beings that feed off that negative loosh die, and or they leave this planet and go somewhere where the beings will do that, are that way anyway. Go where they resonate, in other words.
Well, you mentioned the archons because I mean this begs the question. Well, who would be working towards these terrible outcomes, at least terrible for humanity? And clearly, there's a lot of humans assisting in that effort. Maybe we can identify the players on the table, but it would seem that those that are fooled into selling their souls, so to speak, whether it's figurative or literal, they lose their innate ability to create. They lose access to the things that make them most human, and that's why they favor that side of things. I don't know. What do you think?
Well, the only way they can create is in a world that resonates with that. It's like if you put out an album, a music album, or a movie, and nobody buys it, or nobody goes and watches it. Pretty soon, nobody's going to do that because it's not profitable and it's a waste of their time. So these people that have sold their souls for an entertainment industry where they can do horrific music that's satanic and disgusting and destructive to human life and other life and all kinds of, mean and judgmental and aggressive and, anti-human or even like death and dying and killing and racist and all these other things. A lot of the rap music is extremely racist. Well, if people just didn't buy that, then nobody's going to make money on it. And if nobody makes money on it, then they'll go to where they can make money. If they're musicians, they will wind up having to make or just quit being a musician and do something else. And
Wait,
so
that
actually,
recent,
that's the timeline shift too.
Yeah, I was going to say that recent film, and Scott brought this up. It was nominated for a bunch of different awards, and it was a woman, it was a man who was a transgender woman or whatever you want to call that. And, they ended up pulling it out of the Oscar race, and his career is now ruined. So we're probably going to see a lot less films now focused on that because there's now no audience. I mean, it's like there's not really an audience for that anymore. People showed that they're not interested in that, and then the stories were coming out about whatever that person did. But I see what you're saying. By the collapse of that happening, it's really now people are starting to look, I think, at more moral Christian valued films, traditional, patriotic. I think that's what we're going to see from this.
Yes, you see it with the Oscars, which have been buoyed up by the mainstream media. They really have not had the viewership. I used to watch them too, and hundreds of millions of people all over the world, Oscar night, would watch the Oscars. And I watched a news piece from a group in, I think, India or somewhere. But they were saying that the viewership of the Oscars, and the guy asking the guy in the United States, did he watch them? He goes, a little bit, but I never saw any of the movies that they were giving Best Picture award. Like you said, a transgender guy, opera that, the different ways to become trans. So I didn't know that. She, I didn't know that. I didn't know. It was like a musical, kind of opera musical kind of thing. And Best Picture of the Year. I don't know any of the movies, so I quit watching, and it's just a lot of what they call virtue signaling. Just a lot of virtue signaling. So I got tired of it, and that's the same thing across the board. Is their viewership and who goes to them and who watches them is so low that it's less than a tenth of what it used to be. You see the same thing with mainstream media, MSNBC, CNN. They can't sell it because the viewership is less than Tucker Carlson, or a lot of truthers that are out there on the internet are getting in the millions. So they don't have the people viewing them because people know that's a lie. That's not real, and I'm not interested in that stuff.
Right.
Well, even the venue in which this is a whole ceremony to see, who is awarded the Golden Idol. And if you look at the very theater in which the Oscars takes place, there's all kinds of Egyptian symbolism and even older symbolism surrounding it. The whole thing is an enterprise in, I guess, occulted or mysticism or something.
Absolutely. In fact, the Academy that's in charge of the Oscars, of course, backwards, spelled, if you spell it out, National Academy for something, 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 but it's NATAS. It's Satan backwards. That's not an accident. You have to try to do that.
Yeah. There's a lot of those examples.
I didn't put that.
A lot of them.
Yeah.
That's very.
It's so interesting. It's a golden idol. I mean, and that golden idol is very similar to an Egyptian golden idol that. This is an ancient tradition, I suppose, that's just been modified slightly for, I guess, harvesting our energy.
Yeah, we actually see that taking place where a popular, at least in his day, person that got an Oscar went to Ukraine and gave his Oscar to Zelensky. Why not? He's the highest paid actor of all time. He's made hundreds of billions of dollars. He's got $1 million mansions and yachts all over the world. He's made a fortune as an actor because he's certainly not really a politician. He's an actor.
I'll tell you, if you asked me to draw a picture of what cocaine looks like, portrayed by an actor, it would be Sean Penn. He looks like cocaine, for crying out loud.
Well, this last conference in Germany with Zelensky, if you want to see what a crashing coke addict, the guy that's near his end, I don't think he can be president of Ukraine. He doesn't look like he has a long lease left on life. He's getting near the end of a serious addiction where the hits are getting so frequent and so large that it kills you. And he was crashing, it looked like, in the White House too. That's what a coke addict looks like when they're crashing. I was like, this guy no longer in control of himself. This guy is losing it. And in they call it State of the Union. It was just the congressional meeting that Trump spoke at. You look at Pelosi, that's what the end of an alcoholic looks like. She looked like some guys that you see on the street. Can you give me a 10 for a bottle of wine? It's like different types of alcoholics, winos and gin or whiskey, and they each have, because they're spirits, a different spirit to it. But it's really obvious what you're looking at. It's the
You got to hand it to Barack Obama. He manages that cocaine addiction very well.
That's impressive. Apparently, it's seeming, because you don't see them often together anymore at large events, that Big Mike is not caring for that relationship anymore. There's something gone. Maybe they just reached an agreement. We're tired and we need to move on to new people.
Right.
Or maybe they had an agreement the whole time.
Right. If we're even watching the originals anymore, I would imagine, Gene.
That too.
Yeah.
Right. Right. Well, I do want to dig into this, because I don't know how long we're going to get into these lists. That was a great prelude. We didn't need to rush to get here, and we may get to these and then continue with more of this conversation. But this has been incredible. But let's dig into these lists a little bit, Gene, if you don't mind.
No, I don't. Sure. So I got this from a very good source. It is material that I know from before this source, and it's why I go with this being accurate. It's a quantum source from a person that is going into a quantum source, one of these multi-universal kind of things, compiling information for this Earth on this timeline.
Wow.
This is actually very accurate. It's a listing of 2,000 of the 10,000 dumps that I know.
I will never settle for an average over-the-counter supplement ever again after learning about Sirona. Unleash your full potential with Panacea, a nano-glutathione and collagen-infused MCT oil supplement. Athletes, bodybuilders, and health enthusiasts, it's time to revolutionize your performance. Our proprietary stasis nanotechnology is what elevates Panacea a million miles above the other MCT oil supplements on the market. Our nano-glutathione boosts your immunity, detoxes and speeds up recovery, while the nanocollagen strengthens joints and enhances muscle growth. And since it's all nano-sized, it bypasses the hostile digestive tract and goes straight into the bloodstream, sublingually in the mouth. It's true instant absorption. Also, let's not forget about the amazing MCT oil, your new best friend for sustained energy, gut health, and fat-burning power, as well as a whole host of other health benefits. So it's not just for athletes and bodybuilders. The overall powerful health support will benefit anyone. Combined in one powerful, great-tasting shot, this supplement is your secret weapon for peak performance, endurance, efficiency, and faster recovery. Easy to take and quick to feel the difference. Don't just train harder, train smarter with our nano-glutathione and collagen-infused MCT oil. Panacea, your body will thank you.
Well, so we can go to the document here. You can see I'm in the thousands there.
I did ask Gene to go to the very bottom, just so we
can see. You wanted the bottom or the top?
No, top's fine. I mean, I'm saying that's why you were down that far.
Get up to the top here. Let me see if I can grab the little cursor thing on the side.
Yeah, there we go.
I go to the top quick. Yes.
Perfect.
Okay, so at the top we see the control status. That's who's currently in control. Black hat, white hat, contested, etc. And then next is the primary function history. So, for example, secret underground city, interdimensional portal access, breakaway civilization hub, ancient archive and hidden knowledge storage, mind control and Mark ultra programming. That would be a SparkCap grid and Mark control facility, black budget space program. So that would be a space facility, underground bioweapon. That would be stuff like we see the Chinas in Ukraine, AI and quantum computing like the Hammer, underground bioweapon, again, development, same thing, gain of function, human trafficking and child exploitation hub. And that could go from satanic sacrifice area, blood sacrifice, ninth circle, to just transporting like in Haiti from point A to point C, and that's point D. So that's a trafficking hub.
That one's been there since 1938, according to this chart.
Yeah, so if we go across, you want to see, it was built in 1938.
Wow.
Well, let's talk about the ones with CERN. Scott loves talking about CERN. I'd love to dig more into that as well.
And then you can see over here, of course, we had the location area. So if you're seeing in something like Antarctica, France, that means there's a tunnel system. It's in Antarctica and France, and it's connected by a tunnel system. These two sites work together. It's called Site 18 is the main site. And then based on what it's doing, I can tell you where the main site is. So Antarctica, France, for example, ancient archive and hidden knowledge storage. It's operational. It's a leak bunker collapse. So I don't know how operational, if it's collapsed due to seismic events. AI sub-facility. So there's why sub-facilities, AI controlled sub-facilities. If the AI stuff is buried, it can still function.
Okay.
So that's still operational. You can see the date for it there. You can see some of these are very old and some of them are more new. So 30s up into the years 2002, going as we go down 2000, 19, going into 2000 and 1983, 1992, et cetera, going all the way up into the year 2000s, different 2004, for example, there.
So if there's no date, Gene, does that mean that they're at least still active, or what are the options if there's no date of the
if there's no date, that date here, that's date destroyed.
Right. So if it's not available, that means that, I mean, it could have been destroyed, but we don't know, or what does that not available really mean?
Could have been destroyed. We may not know.
Okay.
May not know whether it may be embattled at the time. So let's see a contested one. Let's see if that comes up that way. Yeah. Contested. It's no longer it's not now because it's in the process of being fought out, over who owns what. And if it's going to be, Cabal attempted counterattack but failed. So it's an AI quantum computing. It's black hat controlled. Currently, it's tied to lunar operations. In other words, there's a jump gate going to the moon on that facility. So, the problem is it goes across. I can collapse some of these, then you won't see everything. But it goes across, so you have to kind of remember what line you're on. And then
of course.
I haven't figured out how to highlight an entire line at this time yet, other than do this. And there we go. Okay.
Okay, cool. We learn as we go.
And this is reflective of our current reality?
Yes, this is our current reality on this timeline.
Wow, it's looking hard to say, but kind of 50-50.
Yeah, it's kind of 50-50. That's why people said it was higher, but then the Anchar that were helping took a lot of them for themselves. So then that would go back to being contested. So it would be current status contested instead of white hat controlled.
So when they're saying drain the swamp, Gene, I mean, the swamp it's so deep and vast, and most people they were thinking, the swamp of DC, and they weren't thinking of deep underground military bases. Now, granted, I'm sure the military was, but the general public wasn't even aware of these, I would think.
Yes. So for an example, there's reasons sometimes deep sea underwater off the coast of Australia up to Canada, CERN style items, Draco base previously, but now white hat. And so that would be in white hat control, but it's not, the date is, it's being repurposed, obviously. It's in progress because we don't have a date. So, and that was built in 1954.
And Gene, who would you say makes up the white hats? For those that might not be sure who the white hats are, could you give the viewers just a little bit of insight into who might be composed of?
Yeah, with the Lincoln assassination, this is what I know so far. It may be even older than this. But with the Lincoln assassination, certain groups within the U.S. military realized, as well as psychic ability types, realized that there needed to be some kind of change in the direction. There was a change in the direction of the U.S. taking place. And there needed a group was in charge of it that were within the Masons called themselves the Olympians, or known publicly as the Illuminati, that were controlling world events for quite a while. Like I said about the White Cliffs of Dover and all this, it's been quite a while. And they figured out that it probably went back to Egypt, ancient Egypt, possibly to, and they weren't sure it really existed, but to Atlantis, and was the reason for the fall of Atlantis, because this group got involved with Atlantis and it caused it to be destroyed technologically from their understanding. And so in this case, they said there needs to be a group so we don't wind up like Lemuria and gone. So this group of special forces, military, combined together and realized that this was not just the US involved. This was across the world. As it affected the world then, it's affecting the world now. So it grew to a group of generals and special forces and other individuals, precognitives, psychic ability types, to where it got to when before World War II, the NAZIs and the Black Sun Order with Maria Orsic and several other people that they absconded their information from, Maria Orsic and others that they stole it from, they got anti-gravitational systems and got in contact with non-terrestrials. And so they made a pact, a deal, black magic, kind of satanic ritual or deal for bases on the moon and Mars. And so this group then realized that they were developing a secret space program. So they then started infiltrating the secret space program. And in 1987, they were finally able, the scientists working in the Cabal's deep state, the black projects of the dark fleet, were able to get the mind wipe devices and find out how to counter the effects so that they could then get a hold of the US dark fleet and change it to being part of the alliance, which was Solar Warden. So Solar Warden then got to be part of the alliance. And then that led to an alliance with non-terrestrial beings that had a non-interference policy, with the exception that they would interfere if they knew it was a species threatening situation, which they then a lot of them experience time uniformly. In other words, past, present, and future all at the same time. And so a hepapod group was the first group that knew that it would cause the human species and other species due to quantum technologies and directed energy weapons of a scalar nature, that it would cause species in faraway galaxies to become extinct. Whole worlds and whole solar systems would be destroyed. So they got involved, and then other groups became involved, where the Council of Nine, that later became the Council of Four and is now back up to the Council of Seven or Nine again, got involved. That's why it's growing again, because they petitioned for the human species. If enough groups from all the countries of the world, like this group, got together and wanted help, they would give help. So now the alliance is composed. There's the Earth Alliance, that's humans, and then you have the Galactic Alliance, and that's a different levels of groups that, just like quantum, because the Cabal has been using quantum portal technology to go infradimensional. In other words, across two parallel universes. So in this case, with that, what they've been doing is now in the alliance, it's composed of parts of groups from other universes, because the Cabal here in this universe has been causing extinction of other groups, even entire universes collapsing in the future, like you see in Doctor Strange.
So, Gene, Elon Musk has made the comment that if there were aliens out there, he would know about it, and he denies it. Now, we're talking about bases on Mars and whatnot. It would be logical that he is bluffing here and he knows all about it. But any insight into Elon's role and what he knows, doesn't know, what they're communicating?
Well, the Elon we have now is obviously not the original, just
Right.
like just like the Putin we have now is and the Biden we have now is obviously not the original. And so, and the Trump we see out running around is not the original. That one's in China for safety purposes. So, in this situation, the current Elon Musk, from my understanding, I agree with Kerry Cassidy on this, that he cyborged himself so he could be immortal, I guess. I guess that's why. Who would? I don't understand this, but okay. You want immortality. You are immortal, but you want it. You want physical immortality. I'm not so enthralled with it, but okay. I understand. I love being physical when I am, but the other levels of existence are far nicer and more beautiful and more harmonious. But okay. So in this case, of course, because he did that and he already has all this technology and awareness, the planting the American flag on Mars, okay, you could do that for the common public, but we're already there. We were there in 1903 with Tesla's technology. So, okay, you could go ahead. Go ahead and show it for the main masses. That's entertaining.
Yeah. We interviewed a fellow that was part of Project Pegasus. And he talked about jump gates that would transport you immediately to Mars.
Yes. Yes, absolutely. And there's jump gates that transport you all over the earth at most Hilton hotels, big ones, the big ones near the airports. But as you can see in this list, there are ones that obviously have jump gates in them where they're connected to the moon and Mars or other planets outside our system. So lunar operations tied to this facility. So we go across here, Asia, South Africa. So that's this one here. And it's operational. It's a deep sea under base, Africa, South America. And if we go all the way across, it's in the process, it's operational. So they didn't destroy it. It's still operational, originally built in 1959, and it goes to the moon.
Okay, wait. It goes deep underground, underwater base, but it goes to the moon.
Yes, with a portal, a jump gate.
Do you want to describe how that technology works?
Oh, very easy. Dulles has one. You get in a little, like a golf cart kind of thing. Rail, like a little amusement park rail system. And you go through a portal without knowing it. And you could maybe never even know that you're on the moon or Mars because you look out the window, it's hologram, and you're seeing what looks like you're in Australia. But you were in, let's say, where Dulce is, up in the US. So you go, oh, okay, I went through a jump gate. But you're actually, if you were to really actually go outside the facility, you're on the moon or Mars, in this case, the moon.
Gene, would you be okay at some point as we get further along in the awakening process if we could take a couple of our viewers and you and go on one of these trips?
Yeah, that would be interesting. So here's one that's hidden time capsule.
Wow.
Hidden energy weapons, Draco bases. I mean, you've got all kinds. A Lyran oversight. So there's on your question of who's involved in this. Then this would be one here. That is White Hat Control. So you can see part of the Alliance's Lyran.
Wow. I just want to let the viewers know real quick. So part of my awakening was stumbling across a couple of these videos. I think it was probably 5 years ago now. And it was the Underground War, parts 1 and 2. It might have been 3. There might have been a couple different ways that these were presented. Anyway, the very bottom was Gene's email. And I was just like, what? So I reached out to him, and, it's led to him going on some other shows, and now he's been on our show. So it's so cool to have him be explaining this stuff when he was a massive part of my awakening to even understanding that this stuff was going on, because I could tell he wasn't really, he was hiding his face, but, people really had questions. He was there for them. And so I just appreciate how humble he's been. And I was so approachable to have these conversations, because I was asking him some questions. And now here we are. It's so great to have you on the show, Gene. We really appreciate it.
Definitely. Gene, a lot of my Law of One adherent friends are convinced that, the negative forces have all been eliminated, the archons and whatnot, and that what we're going through now is an exercise to facilitate an understanding. But as far as a threat for many of these groups, that they've been effectively neutralized. Now, this material we're looking at now kind of contradicts that. What do you have to say about that? Would that be, did we lose you, Gene? I think we lost your audio.
Sorry, when I switched my screen, it muted me.
Oh, yeah.
Gotcha. Okay.
Okay, so the next level of this information, known jump gates. And so because you have things that are non-terrestrial tied to them, in this case, multi-dimensional, interdimensional off-world at CERN, it doesn't just go to the moon and Mars. It was Orion controlled. Well, that meant it went to Orion. So you have to neutralize this end, moon, Mars, our solar system. But the part that goes to Orion, I doubt they neutralize the Draco in their homeworlds. I doubt so they shut down the jump gate that goes to the elite escape negotiation stuff. They did some negotiations. I'm aware of the negotiations that took place for the Draco on Earth. But you still have a nest of Draco that are in South Africa because they own South Africa. Who owns South Africa? And by South Africa, I mean the lower 1/3 of the continent, from Libya and all of that is owned. So, we can see, here's the one I was saying, Dulce, Diego Garcia, the Indian Ocean one, Montauk, Libya. So Libya, that goes to Orion and Mars, and they still own this. Because underneath Libya and the Sahara Desert is what equivalates to the Dulce Nightmare Alley, they called it, where all the hybrids are, where the most horrific experiments on humans take place, of the chimmering of humans with other terrestrial beings, and non-terrestrial beings as well. So you have rays and you name it, all kinds of creatures like dogmen created there in this facility. It's a massive facility. It's under the entire country of Libya and the Sahara Desert.
And it's still operational.
Still operational.
Wow. Okay.
And originally an ancient civilization before the deep state discovered them. So we're talking going back to the time of Atlantis, and even before that to Hyperborea.
Well, the South Africa was always part of the Anunnaki story, that's where they began the mines, and that they indeed found mines that were deeper than you could even imagine there, but ancient, like as ancient as it gets.
Now you're talking going back to the time of Samaria and Sumer. So in that, what we're talking about is when you go back to that time frame, you're talking of underground tunnel systems that go from the areas of Samaria, Babylon, all the way up into China for the Silk Road, and even before that. because China is an ancient civilization as well. It goes way, way back. In fact, and Siberia even more so. Siberia and parts of Russia go back. They found a young lady in a sarcophagus, perfectly preserved, like she was alive, in a coal mine in Siberia. And the coal that she was embedded in dated back 800 million years. And she was in a pink fluid that when the miners unfortunately broke the case open, it caused her to regress to the age of the fluid to the time, and she became a desiccated, mummified being. Was no longer alive. But the material they initially took from her, the KGB came in there. This is during the Soviet Union time. They took skin samples just before it was broken open, and they found out she was human. 800 years ago. What civilization are you talking about? You're talking about and I've got documents and things. You can see videos on it actually on YouTube of a wall, a monolithic wall that makes things like the pyramids of Giza look tiny. The stones are in the neighborhood of 100,000 tons for the average, and this thing goes for miles. And they're fit like you see in Peru, where they're different sizes interlaced and not always rectangular, and the seams are so tight you can't put a razor in there, and the seams are inset so that when water drips it doesn't go through the seam, it goes across, so it's a 45-degree angle going in so you don't erode the seam. And this wall is ancient, and you have pine trees that are 250 years old in this area that are at the bottom of this, and they're not even a fourth of the way up this wall.
And this is Siberia?
Siberia. It's the largest monolithic site on Earth.
Wow.
And what civilization built that? Is it this lady civilization that's 800 million years ago? If we go to Lemuria, it's known that Lemuria first came into being in the area that is near Malaysia up into the South China Sea, going in that whole area, and where the Marianas Trench is now. It wasn't a trench then. It was the first solidified part of the Earth. We're talking before the Earth was in its current orbit, when it was a moon of Tiamat called Kingu. And it was the first solidified area 4 billion years ago. 4.7 billion years ago, Lemuria was a civilization on the first part of the first crust of Earth.
Wow.
So we have civilizations going back in this. I love David Attenborough, and I'm watching the life histories of David Attenborough, and it's wonderful. But when he gets into the evolutionary stuff, I'm like, just like, oh, give me a break. It doesn't either say that. That's what's commonly accepted. But, and he says, we used to scoff at planets, on the planet that continents would drift. And I had, when I was growing up, noticed, like everybody else notices, that the East Coast fits into Africa and Europe pretty darn well. It's obviously was together. But you don't see the connection on the other side because over half the planet is the Pacific Ocean. Goes across, it makes the coastlines that far apart. You can't see them of the east coast of Asia and the west coast of the Americas. It does fit. If you bring up the continent of Antarctica, the largest piece of it, which was part of Lemuria, as well as in Australia, that was part of Lemuria as well. So that's part of the oldest crust of Earth. That's why you find some of the oldest rocks 4 billion plus years old in those areas. They don't tell you about Antarctica much, although it's very easy. You could get a flight down to, I was looking at this, I did a DuckDuckGo search and a Bing search, and to use a Cabal search engine and a Google search, and you can book a flight and fly and camp out in at the South Pole Station, for example, or all over for a week or 2 weeks for only $5,619 on Qantas Airways. I can fly. And you can have kayaking trips and mountaineering trips and sail around the entire sailing trips that go around all of Antarctica, go up and camp, go up and hike, go up in nature. There's lots of nature and birds and whales and stuff, and go up and hike into Antarctica and different places. I imagine they don't allow you to go to see all the pyramids and all this other stuff that's there. That the various expeditions, like the one that Admiral Byrd found, as well as the British and the Russians and of course the Germans in World War II, found lots and lots of ancient technologies and ancient civilization, pyramids that are a mile high. So Antarctica is originally part of this oldest part of the Earth's crust.
Wow. And so how long ago were the Pyramid Wars?
I'd have to pull up my research, but I believe that initially Sahara, the Gobi, happened several millions of years ago, like a 10, I think, 10, 17 million, somewhere in there. I have to pull up my research. I don't have that off the top of my head. I haven't looked at it for a long time.
Yeah, just trying to put it all into perspective. I've had, I've talked to you about some strange, I guess we can call them memories from that period of time.
So to go back, my first knowledge of the Draco and the negative alien groups coming to Earth is way before the World War II group, with the asking them to make a deal for property on the moon of Mars. It goes back to the engineering of the T-Rex and the predators of the dinosaur era. They were engineered by them as predators. They did not exist naturally. So we're talking 267 million years ago, and I'm aware of their encroachment at that time. So we're going back before that would be before they were here. So 300, 400, 500 million years ago, which would go to the displacement, 500 million years ago, would go to the displacement of the Earth into its current orbit and the destruction of Tiamat. If you get the project Gold, what is it? I can't get the name of it. I haven't looked at it, but it goes into Worlds in Collision by there's 2 or 3 different scientists that talk about the fact that the asteroid belt that's between Mars and Jupiter is a broken up planet. And they traced back all of the asteroids' paths in time to 500 million years ago. Oh. And this Worlds in Collision, they figured that there was a large world of which one small planet is left in the asteroid belt. Other than that, this one large world was between Jupiter and Saturn, and Earth was, what we call Earth, was a moon of it. And that our moon was actually launched from that area as a projectile, or in other words, a space ark.
Wow.
I had a real quick question for Gene. Gene, since your near-death experience, have you tapped into either astral travel or your abilities much more since then, or were you privy to that, skill set prior to your near-death experience? What was that, 20 some years ago?
Yeah, so Worlds in Collision is by Immanuel Velikovsky. For those that are interested, it came to mind now. So for astral travel, I used to do it, but it's dangerous. So I've changed since my death experience, learning how dangerous and detrimental it can be to you as an individual, to any person. I do soul travel now, because you don't have hidden agenda and you don't have the negative influence of seeing things presented to you that aren't necessarily real yet, or going to be real because they want them to be real. So they'll show you things, if you're wanting to remote view in the future, for example, that they want the negative group that runs the planet mostly to some degree now, want it to be real. And so they will show you things, negative stuff that's quite disturbing. And then even the positive stuff, it's textured with people's desires. I want the pure, what is the highest level of the possibility of the future? What is the true golden age of the human species to be? At the highest level, at the soul level, what is our destiny for us human beings, the souls of humans? Where are we meant to go? What is our destiny? If we're at the highest alignment we can possibly be, beyond learning lessons, we've got all that done, and the emotional lessons and all of this other lessons and mental ideas and thoughts and emotions and all of this, when we get beyond all of that and just in pure unity with all of everything everywhere, what does that look like? And so that's the soul level. And so I started that in 1992 after my death experience, going to worlds and viewing worlds. Like my first one was Rigel 3. I went to a world and I saw, this was 8 years before the movie Contact, I saw 4 of those devices on the west coast of the main continent, 12 of those devices on the east coast. And I drew it for my main martial arts student. And then the movie came out years later and he goes, you have, I go, you see, there's right, that's there. He goes, no, you have the ability to remote view in time movies that'll be made. Either way, if you tell somebody that, they're going, you're delusional. It's like, but I would just pick out a star chart and go to some system. And I learned, especially because of the Draco and other negative alien groups, you want to go on the soul level and not the astral level. You go to Orion, and the constellations and the planets in Orion, a lot of them are exceedingly dangerous on the astral level. You can wind up being fed on for the rest of ever. So it's not a good idea. So I always have been going at the soul level from then. And so the ticket is to learn how into that area to maintain yourself there so that when you go to sleep at night, because that's what most dreams are, astral, it's like the rush hour at night. That's why I don't mostly sleep at night. Besides the fact that Magellan's loves the night, I don't like sleeping then because the astral is packed and it's traffic jam. You got to go through it to get to the soul plane, and I'm like, I can't get through the traffic. I want to get up in the mountains, I don't need all of these people playing games with me. All these beings out here. I just want to go to the mountains. So I like to go to sleep when most people are getting up to go to work because it's quiet. And I can get up into the soul planes where you're at the highest levels of creation and what it's like. And it's the future of all the species in different groups. And it's incredible and amazing, but you get everything that's a potentiality to come into the human experience at the highest levels.
So is there anywhere that you would suggest, let's say there's a viewer watching right now and they're like, well, I'd love to learn to do this in the way that Gene's talking about, soul instead of compared to astral. Where would you send them for how to do that?
So before I go to sleep, like I was saying, I do this before I go to sleep. I do my envisioning and my Jesus Christ invocation as I'm going to sleep. And before that, I listen to music that is very high in vibration. You have to be careful and picky because even classical music had entrainment in it. There's classical music that's incredibly dark too, but there's some very high level classical pieces and current pieces, some of Deva Premal's early work, for example, I recognize it. One of her musical pieces on Dashina album is a musical part that I knew when I was a Naical priest in Lemuria. We would every morning with the rising of the sun chant that to the rising of the sun to greet and align ourselves, to greet the day, give thanks to God and align ourselves with God. And so I listen to music that resonates with me at a very high level and get myself at a soul vibration so that when I fall asleep, I don't drift into astral, I drift into the soul plane. And I don't drift. I actually now, because of doing this since 1992, and because of the fact that, I've had some injuries and accidents, that I have to be cognizant of my body while I'm asleep, so that I don't cause pain within my body that feeds the Morgellons that then make me burn and sting, and I wake up anyway. So I am more awake asleep than I am awake, because I'm aware of my subconscious, my unconscious. The unconscious is your body layer. And then I'm aware of what's going on in the house and the city and everything all around me, all at the same time. Because at that soul level, you can be aware of all the levels below you simultaneously. So I'm aware of what my body's doing, I'm aware of what's going on in the house, I'm aware of what my dog's doing, what my wife's doing, what's the traffic's like outside the house, everything all at once. And so because of that, it's a much preferred layer of way of it being in existence. And so since about the year 2000, I have not dreamed in the astral layer at all. I've always gone to the soul layer and gone to planets and worlds all over. So that's why I know the species that are negative, because they're not there. And I know the ones that are the good ones. That, when Holloman Air Force Base took place, the blues. I go, why didn't you sign with the blues? Why did you sign with the bad ones? So it's like, you got what you signed up for, didn't you? You got a military industrial complex that is owned and operated by and for the Greys. So, because you signed up with them, and then they're by the Draco, so because they're allegiance. So it's that awareness and all of this that the Trump team now is aware that they have a group of people within the alliance that are aware of these layers of existence, and that pretty much just hold out at that layers of existence. And so it's the same thing when I'm looking at information of movies or of things on Gaia, like back with testimonials of certain people saying that they were off world with this group and that. I go, that's a bad group, that's a good group, based on how they treat others. In other words, are their service to self or service to others? That's a extremely service to self group that pretty much predates on everything around them, so that's not a good group. So that's a very kind and loving group, et cetera, like the heptapods and different creatures like that. I know which are which. The Lyran contingent that the Earth is working with, for example, they're really amazing. The golden triangle ones, those guys are really like kids, but they're really sweet, but they're like kids. They're very kind and sweet and a bit naive, but I love them. But and the Leonora are ferocious, but 100% in service to others and God. So and then the Garuda as well are incredibly warrior level beings that are really true warriors in service to God.
Wow. I'm ready for some of those interactions. That's fantastic. I got a question for you. You mentioned the T-Rex and the experimental dinosaur thing, and it just led me to remember Edgar Casey, doing his thing with regard to Atlantis, and that prior to the Belial group using the Two-Eye Stone in a way that destroyed that civilization, the imminent threat was from what a lot of people interpret as dinosaurs or large lizards or whatever. I always kind of thought they might have been talking about Draco reptilians, but any insight into that?
So let me clarify first that the raptors are indigenous to this sphere, to the Earth, as it was kingdom. Before humans were here, other than Lemuria, once it was a solid crust, the main group that were given, I guess you could say dominion, were the raptors. And the raptors are part of the alliance, the white hats, because their queen is a precog. And she remote viewed the future and saw that their species would end if they stayed in alignment with the cabal. So they switched allegiances, not like flip hats. They learned to not eat humans. It's extremely hard for them.
Oh my God.
You know, they love the taste of humans. They say sweet meat, but they love to help humans now, and they're extremely technologically advanced as well as, in their way, spiritually advanced. I know it sounds a contradiction, but humans tend to be very narrow-minded in regards to reptilians, especially. So,
But the group that Casey was referring to, any idea who that may have been? The threat to Atlantis?
that's the Draco.
It was the Draco. Okay, that's
Draco contingent, what they call
thought
the
so.
Orion Syndicate. And that's what brought the downfall. The alignment to them was what brought the downfall. It was in two stages. The first downfall, they started using the large power generating crystals and were also used to create telepathic linkings all over the planet. So leaders of different areas could be directly in contact with each other, mind to mind. They instead started using them for mind control of the masses. Sounds familiar, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Harp, I don't mean to harp pun intended, of course. And, they also used them for conquest and became a conquering empire. So the first destruction was the war between Atlantis and Lemuria, and I have that on the unscripted on my website, talking about when and how that came about, as well as on my Expanding Earth Decode I did on my Rumble and on my website. And in that, the continent of Atlantis was broken into pieces and destroyed for the most part. Part of it became the smaller piece that's Antarctica, and part of it became Greenland. And then there were 5 islands, large islands that stretched from the Bahama Bermudas down to where Trinidad and Tobago are today. And then Lemuria was the main part, capital of Lemuria, Thule, which was where the Marianas Trench was there. And it was burned down until it was burned all the way with a particle beam from the moon to the beyond the crust of the earth into the magma mantle, which caused the rip to go around the earth and break the continents apart. It's what originally broke the continents apart 140 million years ago. And so wow. They broke apart in a period of 40 days and went to where they are today within about 40 feet. They've only moved 40 more feet since that. So if you look at core samples from the oceans of the world, Atlantic, Pacific, Indian Ocean, you will find nowhere that's over 140 some million years old. The oldest rock, like I said, you're going to find is in the Asia area where Lemuria was, that wasn't burned completely into the mantle. And so that crack went and all the continents moved. And underneath the continents were the huge aquifers. Underneath the long freshwater seas that were on top of the rock of the earth, the solid one crust. And so the crust of the earth broke apart and the earth expanded suddenly. It was at that time 52% the size of it is, but it was needing to expand because it had been accumulating material in 2 different ways for billions of years. From space, we get about 200 billion tons of debris a year. And then plants, as well as people, have the ability, and other animals, if they were to remember, through eat sunlight and create material through cold, what they call cold fusion, low energy nuclear reactions. They create elements. So if you look at a redwood tree, you see a massive pile of debris at the bottom of the tree. You don't see a crater, with tons and tons of wood being created, because it's creating a lot of its material by replicating, bringing up materials from the earth, replicating it, and putting it back into the earth. And it builds up the earth around it, and it sheds on the earth around it, all its pine needles and branches and twigs. And at the same time, so the earth was increasing in size and needing to increase. So when the crack happened, it went to the size it is today, pretty close. It gets a little always here, like I said, but the major location of all, and it wasn't that in the case of India, it didn't go sliding around all the way over there. No, that's not correct. It didn't make the Himalayas. Mountain ranges are made by hydraulics of the mantle underneath and currents that are in the mantle pushing up the continents in the major areas where the continents are thinner. And that's what creates the raising of the mountain chains. It's not because one continent is crashing into another. The continents don't crash into each other at all. There are no subduction zones at all. That's a total fiction. There are areas where the continents are pulling apart and you see more material being added, like the mid-Atlantic, mid-Pacific, mid-Indian Ocean, Antarctic Ocean, all of these oceans of the world, you see more material being added daily. But you do not see material that's subducting under a continental edge. If you did, just like if I push my hand across your fingers across the back of your hand, it folds up material. Well, why don't we see mountain ranges at the edge of every continent on the edge of the oceans? Huge mountain ranges like the Himalayas that's been piling up for 100 million years. You don't see it.
That's a good point. Wow.
That's a great point.
You don't see that because it's not happening.
Gene, you mentioned Greenland, so now we got to go there.
I'm waiting for you to say that.
Yeah, well, Trump has repeatedly said it's essential to defense, world defense, global defense. And a lot of people are speculating on what the interest is, but I have a feeling you're gonna enlighten us a little bit on what that might be.
Yes. So in that, there is a tunnel system that goes between a facility that has a key, a genetic key, that requires the primary species on Earth to activate it. They each have to do a genetic imprint into this key to open this facility that's underneath the ice and the ground in Greenland. And it has a tunnel system that goes to Mount Haines and what's now called again Mount McKinley in Australia. In alphabetical memory, in Alaska.
Alaska, okay.
Through the Northwest Territories and an opening in various parts of Canada as well, of dumps that are in control of the Alliance now. And they just recently got control of the Denali and found out that there's a facility, a quantum facility, vastly old, vastly amazing, in that it can put up an iron dome, what is being called an iron dome, a protection dome over the entire continent.
So when he talked about the Golden Dome, that's what he was referring to.
Yes, or the entire Earth, with each country having its own. You could literally do that with this thing. So you could not have war at all. Yet if your intentions are peaceful and respectful, you could travel by plane or whatever means you want from country to country. But you could not wage war, send missiles, fighter jets through this barrier, because that's an intent for destruction of another place. And so this technology also has the ability for interdimensional, infradimensional, and intermind communications for world leaders simultaneously, like Atlantis was using the crystals originally, the way they're supposed to be used. So this is extremely ancient, but extremely powerful quantum level technologies.
Oh, and he renamed or reverted to the name McKinley, which is highlighting another piece of this puzzle, and invited the idea of Canada being the 51st state. It kind of ties a little bow around your story in a pretty unique way, I think.
All of these ancient sites used to be interconnected, and they still are. So this, they will find out thing. I'll let them know. I guess I'll tell them now. I allow? Yeah, okay. So it connects to Giza and Buchegi and the Valley of the Moon and the inner Earth. The McKinley, Greenland, Northwest Territories in Canada, and Giza Plateau, and also a system in Iraq that they were trying to get during the Iraq conflict, as well as the Valley of the Moon that you saw in the movie Lost Horizons, that's in the Himalayas, that goes to the inner Earth, into specifically Shambhala in the inner Earth, that continent inside the 12 continents inside the Earth. One of them is Shambhala, it goes to Shambhala, as well as Buceg in Romania. And that's why they don't want, the cabal does not want to let go of Romania. They want iron control of Romania because the complex that connects to all of this, you can remote view, for example, the past in 100% detail and accuracy. So if you read the Radu Sinamar books on this, he went back in time. A person went back in time and remote viewed Christ. And at one point, when he was coming down with 3 ladies from a temple, Christ looked at him, recognized he was there energetically in his soul traveling in time, and said, I will give you information needed for your time. This was Christ. And he also witnessed the crucifixion of Christ, too. So, I mean, it's going to destroy the history of the world that we've been fed, because it's going to verify certain things like that people don't want verified on certain groups, as well as undermine certain things that have been said within historical, pretty much all our history, and certain things even within the Bible that have been mistranslated from the Greek and the Aramaic.
Wow. You got me all tingly now. That's wild. Whose DNA unlocks the device under Greenland?
Human, raptor, and a few other species that I'm not allowed to name at this time.
Oh, but they're all required together, or
all together?
So that sounds like unity.
It is. So let me see if I can get the name. There's a Netflix series out where they kind of, in a sort of off kind of way, refer to this type of a genetic lock, a discovery of witches.
Oh.
And they have a facility that's in Italy. It's just showing that type of a lock, but it's that type of lock. And it's not necessarily those species that they're showing. In that series, they're showing vampires and demons and humans and other things. It's not necessarily those, but as I already mentioned, raptor. You don't see raptor in this, so it's different, but it's the same technology.
Wow. I'm writing that one down. I got to check it out.
What's the name on that again?
A discovery.
Oops, go ahead.
A discovery of witches.
Okay.
An interesting expose or evaluation of looking at a series of species, different understanding, and that thinking, perhaps, is it possible we all came from the same place?
Well, Lyra gets that title, maybe not our origin story, but at least in terms of starseeds, it seems like everybody originated in.
Oh, not at all. It's just a lot of, because they're really nice. So they want to be from there. It doesn't mean you are from there. I'm not from there. It's like kind of obviously, because what my original form when I came into physicality eons ago was 650 feet tall. So I'm obviously not Lyran because they're not that tall. But
right.
Size. I mean, when you have the large meetings like the Ganymede meetings that take place in a space-folded facility, you have tables that go anywhere from so tiny you can't see them because the beings out of them are too small for the eye to see, to tables that are big enough for something that big.
So on that topic, Gene, the next time we have you back, could you share a picture of you at 650 feet tall, just for
One brother Luciano.
Yeah, I've been told repeatedly that I have Lyran origins. I have no
Yeah,
idea how to verify that, but it's come up many times. Yeah.
yeah. When I shared on Patriot Underground this with Gary Gassity and Patriot, that I'm not from this world originally, Carrie said pretty correctly, almost nobody from this world, if you're not from Lemuria, is your first incarnation, and you wouldn't be that old then, because the Earth is not old. It's only a little over 6 billion years old. It was a molten ball for several billion years, a couple billion years. And then the Milky Way is not that old either. It's only 650 billion years old, where the universe is just finishing 18 trillion at the location we're currently at. Now, we can't see that far because that it's that old, because that means the universe is that old. The location we are at is not 18 trillion. The universe is finishing that age. But where we are isn't that old. So we can only see this location hasn't existed that long. So we can only see as far as light has had the ability to get to a location that's been in existence how long has it been in existence, because light's traveling at a specific speed. And so you can't see further away than the areas that existed. And so we can see that the Milky Way is moving in towards Andromeda. And based on the speed of transit, you can say, okay, if we left Andromeda and we're this far out, how long has it taken us to get out here? And then we're going to take how long to get back? And you double the time, you'll say, how old is the Milky Way? Well, the universe is much. You have galaxies out there that are up to 18 trillion years old. You have species like the Draco. They're very ancient. They're in the trillions of years old, where mankind is not that old, but humanity is vastly ancient. We are far older than the Milky Way. And so we've come through a series of forced moves, because the Draco keep moving and destroying our planet. We keep having to move. So we've moved through Lyra, we've moved through many different galaxies, Andromeda, etc., having to move over and over again because they don't like humanity.
Right.
Wow. Yeah, I'm contemplating changing the thumbnail, Joe, to just a brain on fire.
I know. Gene, how much longer do we have Gene for? We have another show tonight. We also have to dial in. But
I don't have anything until I don't think I have any. Well, let me look at my calendar. Hold on.
Okay. While he does that, Scott, is there anything else you want to make sure that you ask Gene? These questions are great, by the way.
My next thing is my bi-weekly news update on my website, which I have every 2 weeks, which is at 11:30 tonight. So I have till 11:30.
Marathon. Well, Scott, what do you want to make sure you ask Gene?
Oh gosh, my head's swimming at this point. That's a dangerous question to ask me right now. Oh.
Well, any current events that Gene, where do you? Okay, I want to know this. Where is Israel?
It's a place that's located. I don't think you mean location, right?
Well, both, I guess. Like, there's a lot of, some people have said that, the true Israel is in North America. I mean, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, so Israel, of course, is originally part of Fertile Crescent development as the species, as life was redeveloping after a flood in that area. It moved up from between the Euphrates and the Tigris, and it moved up through what's called the Fertile Crescent, and then down across the Mediterranean area, and then down into what is now called Lebanon and Syria and Israel and that area there. And so as far as the conflict, of course, there's a debatable ceasefire that's supposedly in effect or not. I don't know if I would call that really a ceasefire, but okay. But if you look at that region, you will see that, and I pulled it up here on a search engine. Let me share screen.
If only I had discovered this kind of nanotechnology for skincare when I was 20 years old. Instead of just recently, I think I might still look exactly the same. The power of nanotechnology with our skin seems to be otherworldly. But it's not. It's just science. Really good science. Introducing Skin by Surona. It's not just any skincare product, it's powered by our revolutionary and proprietary stasis nanotechnology. Thanks to this proprietary technology, every nutrient in skin is a true nano-sized particle. We're talking about nano-sized glutathione, hyaluronic acid, collagen, vitamin B5 and resveratrol. No one has ever put together such a potent and powerful fountain of youth in a bottle like this before. Imagine spraying youth directly onto your face, neck, arms and hands every single day and watching the clock go backwards. The before and after results are stunning, which often results in even doctors swearing that these results are from surgery, but they are not. It is simply the result of infusing the skin with true nano-sized nutrients, which are depleted day after day, year after year, decade after decade, which inevitably leads to what we call aging. Our skin nanospray delivers these vital nutrients deeper and faster than ever before. And since these nutrients are preserved and protected in stable suspension, using our proprietary stasis technology, it has an impressive 2-year shelf life. So you get all the benefits without the worry of expiration or degradation of vital nutrients, as you experience with other products that are strictly water-based and oftentimes carry other substances that are detrimental to glutathione and the other nano-sized elements, causing them to break down in as little as 30 days after bottling. Unlock the secret to radiant, youthful skin with Surona's Skin Supplement. Spray it on, let it absorb and watch your skin transform. It's that simple. Now, if you really want to boost the seemingly miraculous effects of the skin spray, you can also use our Skin Plus with the spray. Simply use this silky mask in the shower twice a week by placing a dime-sized amount of product on the fingertips, leave it on the skin for 60 seconds, then rinse, and you're finished. We call it Skin Plus because of the amazing enhancement that it adds to the effects of our skin spray. With highly valuable and rare ingredients, which retail in some European countries for upwards of $1,000 a bottle, it's easy to see why this highly coveted formula is the perfect addition to your Surona skin routine. Say goodbye to skin issues and dull, lackluster, aging skin, and say hello to a luminous, vibrant, youthful glow. Are you ready to revolutionize your skincare routine? Are you ready to make it really quite simple? Try Skin by Surona today and see the difference our nanotechnology makes. Remember, immaculate skin isn't magic, it's Surona.
Yeah.
So here we have Israel. Please zoom out a bit. So the Fertile Crescent, originally you're talking coming up from the Persian Gulf, Tigris, Euphrates, coming up through Turkey, and then coming back down through Syria. Damascus was a huge hub. Also, going into Iraq in this area, Baghdad, that then going down into Israel in this area, and then of course going across, and also part of that had to do with humanity coming up the Nile, which is an unusual river in that it flows upwards, and so you had various times of which parts of the Nile was a kingdom, upper and lower and middle kingdoms, and from the different cataracts, there's 6 total cataracts on the Nile. And so at a certain time, they were finally united, and you had different capitals, Thebes, Cairo, etc. And so the Fertile Crescent then included, and then the parts of the Nile as well, as it swung across the connection here. And then additionally, you had, of course, the Roman Empire eventually, which would be, in this area over here. actually coming down and annexing the Egyptian empire at a certain point and taking over most of the world, including most of the Fertile Crescent. So if we zoom back into Israel, we have them saying they want to create what is called Greater Israel. And so what that in their mind, their arm patches on their armbands, and we just did this on the 911 decode showing what's on the Israeli, the IDF, the Israel Defense Forces armband that they put on their uniform. And it shows the entire area of what they say should be from the river to the sea. But in actuality, by the time you get done, they're saying it should be parts of all of Syria, all of Lebanon, a big chunk of Egypt, and actually going all the way down to like all of Egypt, down to South Sudan, all of this, Libya, majority of everything in here, all of Iran, all of this should be part of Israel. So that's what they're saying Greater Israel should eventually be. But right now we're looking at, they're saying that Damascus is supposed to be part of Israel. But of course, with what's happening with HMS and all of that, with the Azerites and all of that, probably preferable to some degree, lesser of evils, I guess, of having Israel in there instead of what's currently running the terrorists that's running Syria.
Right. And we, Scott, what was that? Scott just shared something from this girl. Her name's Paykel. It was an Instagram post. Did you have that handy, Scott, to read that?
Well, I can't read it. It's a video, but
just to highlight. I mean,
well, the idea is that the country of Qatar or Qatar, or however we're pronouncing it these days, was the conduit by which a whole lot of Israeli money funded Hamas, in order to create the events in October that it was their 9/11. It was a big false flag, is the contention. We reached out to Jaime Harlow. Jaime Harlow, who's quite knowledgeable about this stuff. He said there's no evidence for that directly.
Well, now for 911 is significant. And when they declassify it and release it to the public, it's quite evident that Israel, the Mossad specifically, and the Zionists, not the Hebrew people in Israel, were the reason for 911. That they were the ones of the cabal faction that enabled 911 and October 7th, along with MI6 for October 7th, because you did not penetrate the dome they had unless you had, just like with 911, sleeper agents within the system that would allow for it to be penetrated like that. It's not going to be penetrated with it could stop a cockroach from coming across before, and then these people are paragliding in there. I don't think so. So what you're seeing is on purpose being led.
Well, her assertions implicate Netanyahu directly, and I don't know if that would make sense or not. I know he's vested in keeping the war going because he's got a rather unfortunate path ahead of him when the war's over. But
yes, Netanyahu directly, and he actually it's on the Decode on Deep Dives, but on the website on decode.org. But it is a statement he made after 911, in which he said, "We will profit greatly from 911." And he also said in another statement that they will, essentially, I'll paraphrase it to make it simple, why the U.S. break it into pieces and consume it all and use it in the process for their greater good.
yeah, well, in the Q materials, there's the phrase that just keeps coming up over and over again: saving Israel for last. That could be interpreted in a million different ways, but care to comment on it?
Yeah, yes, because Israel, because of its location, tied to Giza, which of course is tied to McKinley, tied to Greenland, and tied to Iraq, and all of this all of these underground tunnel systems and dumps that go back to ancient times. You know, special areas like not just Giza, but Khartoum and the parts of Greenland I mentioned, and Mount McKinley and the Valley of the Moon. These are so, and Chang especially, are so pivotal to being in control of the earth, I guess you would say, to put it simple, or to lead the earth, whether it's in a golden age or a dystopian age like Armageddon. It's so pivotal, and they have been dug into Africa. Like I said, their main dump is, you know, if I go back to that map, the South African dump, I'll just kind of draw it here, is like this. It goes like this. Pretty much this line, and all of this, and under here is all the Chimera stuff. And then down here, all of this is the main Draco stronghold, with this being the primary part and the main entrance here. But all of this is pretty much under a complete network of tunnels that go up into Syria and over into Iraq. And then from there, go to the Himalayas. So you can see with those interconnections how important it is. So the Draco Queen that originally ruled the earth is her offspring, kind of a more of a mutt offspring, not a white pine anymore, but is left in charge. And she is still in Israel. And by in Israel, that's exactly what I mean. In it, as in the underground, deep down in there.
Wow. Well, that's really, really interesting.
So if I want to go, well, I don't know if I'll say Israel. Let's put it more precise. Under Mount Hermon. Way deep.
Wow. Mount Hermon's referenced in the Bible over and over.
Mm-hmm. And in the Syria conflict.
Right. And I think I asked you this once before, but, you know, the United States, well, gosh, so many countries have harassed Syria over and over and over again. And we had the gassing of Bashar al-Assad's own people, which was proven to be untrue, and intelligence efforts instead. Why the constant harassment? I mean, when I think about Syria, somehow I think Stargate.
Yes.
What are they really after?
It was why the Iraq War. The Iraq War primarily is because Saddam Hussein's palace was on top of the Temple of Solomon. And Solomon had a Stargate in the temple. And it's still underneath that palace.
In Iraq or in Syria?
In Iraq. But
so what?
Tied to the Stargate that's in Mount Hermon. In, you know, if we go to where is Mount Hermon, it's pretty darn close to Damascus. You know, near the Golan Heights, between that area, let's just say. So the problem they had is when they got in there, Saddam Hussein had fled to Syria through tunnels to Mount Hermon area. And he took the dial-up device power supply. Well, we don't have the technology to create that. So it's useless. So that's why at the end of that war, you see US Marines were torturing people in Iraq who ran the museums of antiquity in Iraq. There was a lot of that came out in the news. For what? You can take what's in there. Why are you torturing people? Because something's missing, right? What was missing is they thought they had hid the dial-up device power supply in a museum. It's kind of like Hitler did at the end of World War II, or during World War II, excuse me, at the outbreak of World War II. He hid his lead aircraft in the Paris Air Show. It's like, put it out there. Oh, that can't be it. He wouldn't do that. Yeah, that's exactly where he hid it. They can't, so they go, that can't be it. So this is the same thing that we're seeing here. That's what they thought, but in this case, he actually took it with him to Syria. And the person they captured was a pathetic double, because if any of you have grown a beard, you certainly do not grow a 1.5 foot long beard in 1 month. You grab the guy a month or so later, and he has a huge beard. And a lot of it's, almost all of it's white, and the beard he has before was all black. So either his hair turned white, or he's grown it all out, or this is not the same guy. So it's pretty obvious. There's a lot of other clues that that's not the original Saddam Hussein. So he is actually still there with that device. And so they still want that device. Thus, the backing of the deep state of the US for the overthrow of the Syrian government, the final overthrow that we just saw by HMS, along through their proxy of the leader of Turkey and the British that worked, MI6, Mossad. All of this worked together. It's why you see immediately the Israelites, I mean the IDF, excuse me, coming into Syria, almost Damascus, because they want that.
And that device remains hidden.
It remains hidden.
And if they got a hold of it, what might be the outcome of such a thing?
Their ability to reconnect to the Orion homeworld.
That puts it into perspective. Wow.
Wow. I mean, we could keep going. I almost wish we didn't have another show.
I know, we do have another show.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be a great show.
I can come back. You don't have to do it all in one sitting.
Yeah,
we'd like that very much.
Soon. Yeah.
Yeah. Maybe we can do it sooner this time than it's been a while since we've had you on the show, and I always enjoy this.
Good idea.
Yeah.
It'd be so much different. This will be relevant, probably. But let's go to the last step. What is this tied to? The other thing that's being talked about is Ukraine.
Right.
The mountains of Ukraine is where the Khazarian mafia originally landed when they came to Earth. They originally landed in the Pontic steppes that go from all the way down through Ukraine, primarily in that part of Ukraine that's between Romania and Ukraine. That's the area where they originally started. Romania, it's between them, Romania, Poland, Hungary, Slovakia. It's where they originally landed. It goes all the way, through Moldova. Crimea is a big chunk of it, and then it goes down through Georgia and Azerbaijan, and where that airline crashed. That's due to this situation. And all of the bio enhancement facilities in the Chinas all over Ukraine, as well as Chernobyl, is a huge underground facility. And Odessa is a massive anthill of stuff that goes with a maglev line to Kiev. And then you have the wool facilities that were tied together from Ukraine all over Romania, Bulgaria, Serbia, Hungary, Slovakia, Czechia, Austria, Germany, by the NAZIs. They interconnected all of this with tunnel systems so that he could get all over the place. And, they could get all over the place underground. And so those are ancient systems they had found that were already there from the Hyperboreans that really tunneled into and created advanced facilities like Crimea. It's just why they keep saying they have to have Crimea. the borders before 2014. And of course, the Russians will never agree to seceding any of that or of what they've gotten since 2022, because they paid a lot of lives for it. And they will know that the West word is worthless at this point after breaking Minsk 1 and Minsk 2 and et cetera. Minsk 3 or whatever. Yeah, you can't trust them. And one president that comes and one president, new one comes, and everything can be undone. So they are not going to pull out of there. They're not going to agree to a ceasefire. They're not going to agree to a cessation of anything. They're not going to agree to peacekeeping forces unless they're some other group that doesn't have skin in the game. And that would certainly rule out the EU and NATO and Five Eyes. So,
but they do have good intentions.
They have absolutely good intentions, and they have no intention whatsoever, are they that done it, of going into the Baltic states or any other part of Europe. They have no intention of that. They want to deal in, like, that's why they understand Trump so well. They want to trade. They want to have fair trade, not free trade, fair trade, and build it. What do you see them doing all over Africa? They go in and they build a nuclear reactor for some country in Africa and start, and they go into Nigeria and start like the Egyptians did, and start helping them mine their gold for their people. And they turn the gold mining facilities over to the people of the country. Just like they do with the nuclear reactor, they turn it over to the people so they can enrich themselves. So you have a trade partner that's wealthy and producing a lot, instead of impoverishing them and forcing them to dig with their hands for rare earth minerals, for example, like you see all over Africa with the French. They're kicking them out because people are being buried alive, because they're in there with their hands digging, and they in the dirt for rare earth minerals. And it's, besides the danger, it's extremely detrimental to your health. And so that's not what the Russians do. They don't do this. If they had wanted to do this, it's kind of obvious at this point, they can outfight, outmanufacture the entire rest of the world, except in China included. Everybody else, they can outmanufacture. It's been admitted, in 3 months, they make more than the United States and all of Europe and us, everybody else, Canada, everybody else put together. In 3 months, our whole yearly output, let alone the fact that they have over 1 million men in arms right now. And you're not talking somebody it's scripted off the street and jammed into a SUV like in Ukraine. We're talking people who have already served military time saying, I want back in, and I want our homeland of our people in Ukraine that are Russians allowed to speak Russian and speak do their faith, the Russian Orthodox Christian faith, instead of having their mosques, or not their mosques, their churches burned down, their priests and they're put in prison or killed, the churches desecrated that are hundreds of years old. They're saying we want to have the right to practice and speak our religion and practice our faith in our homeland, which is Ukraine is a made-up place.
Yep.
Specifically by Stalin. It's Odessa was Catherine the Great that made Odessa what it is, made it into the powerhouse it is, and a big port in the Black Sea. And that's why they want it too, because of course it's a big port. But all of this area, throughout the entire thing, was originally where the Khazarians first started. And then they went down into Israel.
Now, you mentioned that they landed, and I've never really thought about this origin story. Or are they indeed human, or
No, they're not human.
Can you elaborate?
No, they're what is known as Homo carpensis. What Homo carpensis is, if you look at the sutures on the skull of just the skull, not a living being, you do not see a sagittal suture. Well, that means they're not human. If you take DNA, they don't share more than 18%. You share more genetics with a rat or a monkey or an elephant than that. So anything that's from Earth, we share a lot, 80% or more, including vegetables. So
like Joe Biden.
yeah, our Kabbalah. She's some kind of prickly pear cactus or something. Jumping choya, because it jumps all over the place. So if we measure the future about a day or whatever, I know she's insane when she talks, but anyway, so this group is two different worlds that they destroyed using a technology they did not understand to try to entrain the fields of rotation of the magnetic fields of U4 toroid, essentially, so that they're both counter-rotating. Where they're supposed to be on top, it's supposed to be clockwise, and on the bottom, counter-rotating. And so it's all systems of spherical beings, even us, we have a U4 toroid of energy around us, which is rotating on the top if you're healthy, which is in most people's case not true. Most people have their U4 toroid, both the upper hemisphere and lower hemisphere, for millions of years has been counter-rotating. That's why we don't live 10,000 years anymore. And we're very short, considering the fact we used to be 60 feet tall human beings, and we're 6 feet tall. I mean, you're 1/10 plus 1/10 of the brain, right? Plus 1/10 of the lifespan, and even less than that. 1% of the lifespan. And then you have the telomere situation, you have the genetic situation, you have all of this. Homo carpensis have two types of skulls. They have one that's bulbous, and then you have one that's cone-shaped, which is why you see the popes and the Egyptian rulers wearing very, very high crowns and hats, or the wigs in the aristocracy of the elite, because they're inbred with this group quite a bit. So the royal families, the House of Orange specifically, but other ones as well, Windsor, all of these are inbred to a significant degree with Homo carpensis. And so they have about 30% more IQ. And they've ruled the world for a very long time. They're what I call crypto hominids. They're secret, crypto sapiens. They're secretly ruling us, but they're not us. They're originally from the Scion system, why they call Zionism. It's come out in the open now with a car that's SCION. Scion is their home star system, but they destroyed home worlds. And their home worlds were complete, the black, what we call oil, and tar, and the black goo of Earth is a compassionate and living system, a part of the Earth. Well, their world had turned, its heart chakra had died, had been destroyed. And so when those worlds broke up, it's like the Superman story, I guess. The asteroids went all out in every direction, and some of them, of course, have landed on Earth. For example, the Falkland Islands. And that black goo is not good, or in the Gulf of America, as they're calling it now. And so that's the bad black goo, in which they get the bad graphenes that they put in the jab. And so this stuff wants to connect you to AI and take you over. It's what creates the shedding situation for people who suffer from Magellans. You get shed on by people that got the jab, and you can get a IP address reader for Bluetooth reader for your phone and see signals coming out of most people, that have, almost everybody that's had the jab has it, unless they got a Salate solution. And so it's what it wants to do. That those worlds were run by AI. And so they wanted to conquer those worlds utterly and go out and conquer outside their system. And that's when they destroyed their homeworlds, they came here. And that's where they came. They came to the Carpathian Mountains. They'll go all the way down into Georgia, into the edge of the, not just the Black Sea, but it also goes into the Caspian.
How long ago did they arrive?
About Pyramid Wars time.
Oh, wow. Okay. Wow. So I got two questions, and you can order them or answer them in whatever order you want. First of all, the flow that we're talking about, the clockwise in the upper hemisphere, uh, for our own individual flow, is that something that's being restored in this whole process that we're living through right now? And the other question is, these Khazarians, are they what is their status currently? Are they being defeated, or are they, what's happening there?
As long as the Alliance, which they have been doing, they've been gaming this out in every possible scenario in quantum systems that are service to others. There's 5 main systems they have. And so they're not going to be stupid about this. The Khazarian and the negative alien groups, they're done. It's only a matter of time, even though the dumps look slightly like 54%. It's inevitable that it's going to be a complete. That's why you see a lot of groups have left of the negative primary upper levels of the Draco, the primes, all the whites left quite a while ago, back in 2016 when Trump got in. They said, different timeline, we're out of here. It was our timeline, and they've changed the timeline, and we lose on this timeline. So we're out of here. So all of this is a done deal. It's not going to, there's nothing they can do to salvage it. Is, nothing can stop what's coming. It also happens to be tied to the change in the timelines as we go into the golden age, going through the CME that'll be taking place, according to them, in 2031. I don't know if that's accurate or not, but that's according to the Cabal's looking glass stuff. Plus, they send a ship through it, through the photon belt. They call it the Masonic Ring. They actually sent a series of craft through it, first being Voyager 1, to prove that it wasn't there. They didn't want it to be there. Prove it's not. We got to make sure this thing is, oh, no, it is there. We lost contact with the thing. It is a photon belt that is coming from the center of this galaxy, from the central sun that's in a black hole, that's an infrared giant. So it's a belt of infrared energy that's essentially 3 days across for a planetary solar system to transit through it.
Wow.
And then the one, because Scott, I got to actually get out to the air.
Yeah, we both have. Yeah, we'll wrap it up. Okay, 2 final questions.
Okay.
The other one was, you referred to the appropriate flow of energy, in our hemispheres. I take that to mean individually. Will that be restored in the process we're going through? And then the final question, Jason Q often refers to Donald Trump as a quasar. Does that mean anything to you?
No, it means nothing to me. He's certainly not a star.
Okay. Yeah, I wasn't sure. Okay.
It took Cuban form, like a quasar or a red giant or a blue dwarf or whatever. I do know what he originally is born as, because I had a student ask me, but I won't share it because human beings are too racist. They're too judgmental. You look at a species and say, well, they're all that kind are all bad. So we don't want to know about them. He's got to be bad if he's one of them. So, there's good and there's bad in any species. Even the species that are predominantly bad, like the Draco, some of them have actually, primes have switched sides. And you see it on Earth too, where people have, like the Kennedys, obviously had an awakening and said, wow, we're in something that's, yeah, the parties are fun, but not like they do them. That's freaking disgusting. So we see a change in things. And we're in that time, and we're in the change, and it's coming. And on the other side of the photon belt, things are vastly different. So their time, nothing can stop the entire universe rotating, including the Milky Way. And you're not going to stop the rotation of the Milky Way with the technology that's on this planet. That's for sure.
And then the flow of our energy, is that being corrected? Where, because you mentioned that has everything to do with our telomeres, our lifespan, all of that. Is that being altered with this DNA change?
part of the ascension process that people are feeling. The speeding up of time you mentioned.
Right.
The seeing into parallels, the Mandela, remembering other paths, other yous that have merged into you, of having knowledge of two paths for yourself. I have that. I have actually 4 primary ones and 2 others. So, the ongoing process. We are our own oversoul for human beings. You are in many, many parallel Earths. There's many, many renditions of you that made different choices. So as the ascension process goes, all of this heals and you come back together and your genetics upgrades and the telomeres come back and all of that. And then you get rid of them because that's actually a manipulation from the dark side.
Well, Joe, you got to stop me before I come up with another question for Gene.
Yeah, I could talk for hours. This is a song that doesn't end.
As always, I've enjoyed this immensely, Gene. I want to thank you so much for coming on the show, and I really look forward to our next one.
Absolutely.
Anything either of you would like to say before we part ways?
Yeah, I think where to find Gene, and also due to everything that we're going through, I'd love for Gene to end the show in a prayer when the time is right, because I love Gene's prayers. So so Gene, where can people find you, and then we'll go from there. Your websites, that is, not you.
That's where genedecode.org. You're looking, I'm not logged in. There's a free surface area where, as submarines, you have a bunch of items. You can view the catalog and look at all the free items. This is free. The Tea and Scones, like I said, is tonight. It's a bi-weekly news update I do with Paul Broker from the Insider Club. And then I'm Real Gene Decode. Let me go to Rumble. On Rumble, I have a Rumble site. Real Gene Decode. There it is.
Beautiful.
So that's the main 2 places. The website has a subscription area that if you want to go into that, deep dives, you sign up. It's $7 a month or $77 a year. And you can tour through the surface area. What's in the paid area, you just can't view what's in there. And there's a lot of materials. We do every month new stuff, like I'm doing the currently deep intro to the DOMS plus another negative alien agenda on the insect groups coming up soon. We're doing 911 is in progress. Ucheg is coming up pretty soon. And we do things because they're so huge in chapters now, so that it doesn't take you 2 hours to listen to one presentation. We do it in 45 minutes or something like this presentation. So that's the primary places to find me. Thank you.
Beautiful, beautiful. And everybody, I'm Joe, that's Scott, TruthStream. We are viewer supported. We'll have our links below. Linktree has all our links. And so, Gene, because we're all going through some tumultuous times, and I don't think it's a bad idea in any way, shape, or form to end this with a prayer. So please, we'll end it there. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. So since you mentioned tumultuous, let's put the prayer towards that. One God of all creations, the Holy Trinity of the Holy Mother Spirit, the one and only God of all love, light, compassion, and creations, and their only begotten Son, Jesus Christ, we ask you for calmness of mind, spirit, body, and soul, and love and compassion for each other, and peace upon this earth, the end of all conflict, and love, respect, and dignity, and accepting others for who they are, and no longer being judgmental. We turn that over to you, and being in compassion and love and acceptance of each other. And for those that don't resonate with us, we learn to walk away and say, I don't want to be part of that. It doesn't resonate with me. I respect it, but I'm over here. So we want to see this earth healed We want to see that all of the plants and animals grow and be healthy, and we ask for a return of our health and our life, meaning the entire lifespan, that we were eternal beings in service to you as in caretakers for this beautiful planet that you've allowed us to be on, and to caretake all of the animals and plants upon it and learn to live in harmony with them and this planet as a living being as well, and learn free energy as well as the printing devices, and so we do not have to pillage and rape the earth and tear apart the minerals. We can make them so that all of this can be a peaceful coexistence in love and harmony, and have hope and beauty for the future, and see our children and their grandchildren or our great grandchildren. And we live on and share our stories, and our true history will come to light of the beauty of the human species and this beautiful planet and the solar system and this galaxy and this entire universe that we have been a part of from the beginning. Thank you, one and only God of all creation. God bless. Teteleste.
Thank you, Gene. I needed that. Yeah, I really appreciate it. And there's nothing like a Gene Decode prayer. So
thank you so much, gentlemen. It's been an honor, as always.
All right. We'll be in touch. Thanks for watching, everybody.
Thanks, Gene.
God bless.
Yeah, thank you, Joe. Thank you, Scott.